there, friends and sane persons, and welcome to another episode of Wednesday Whimsy. My name is Kyle, and Wednesday Whimsy is a short show I do every Wednesday evening-ish, where I talk about a board game, a top 10 list, or a board game-related topic, whatever happens to be on my mind at the time. So, as I mentioned last week, I am I should be in Sweden when this airs, or somewhere over in Europe. I'm on my way to Eurovision, and I thought, in honor of that, I was going to pre-record this one, obviously, and I wanted to talk about a fun topic, not anything too serious, but these are games that you could play when you're sitting on an airplane and you're, put down those little tray tables. So, I mean, what makes this work? Well, it's going to have to be a small game. It's going to have to be a game where the pieces aren't very heavy, because those trays aren't all that strong. It's going to have to be a game that doesn't have a lot of stuff that needs to move around, or that if it got jostled a little bit is... I did not want this to be my top 10 roll and writes again, though, or my top 10 micro games. These are actual sort of... there are some that fit in those categories, but I tried to shy away from having it be just those. And I figured, okay, let's try this. And so a not very serious list, but a fun one nonetheless. So let's go ahead. I'm going to find my numbers here and get started with my number 10. My number 10 is actually the very first game I believe I ever did play a physical copy of on an airplane. Now, I played it solo, and it was right when it had come out, before it was really... it came out and then it got this really big lift to it. The game is called Ganz schön clever. I couldn't write the O with the dots over it here, but that's okay. Let me share the screen. I'll talk about it very briefly. But this is a game where, it's basically just a dice game. It's a roll and write game, and this could really stand in for a lot of games like this. Games where the only kind of movable components are dice are games where that are going to work well in this context. When I played this, I would roll the dice in the lid, and I actually kept the pad in there so that I was rolling them onto the pad so it wouldn't be noisy to disturb other people on the plane. But basically, you roll the dice and you select one, and then you roll the dice again and select another one, and then you roll them a third time, select another one. You're marking up the sheets in a variety of different ways, and there's 3 games in the series, unless a 4th one's come out that I'm not aware of, and that's kind of what you do. A very good game, fun game, and a game that really is going to work well in any context with small space, and works really well on a plane. And hey, I've actually done it. So there you go. My number 10, Ganz schön clever. And I guess I forgot to show the picture. Well, here you go. You can see it. Now we'll take it away again. Let's go on to my number 9. All right, my number 9 is an older game. It came out in about, it looks like 2013. This is a game with a weird geisha theme, but it's an interesting kind of back and forth game that doesn't take all that long. The game is called Hanamikoji. And I'll show a picture here. Aren't you working, friend? So this is... It's not a solo game anyway. Here we go. Well, there's a video. Delightful. I'm glad I have a video. But so the game is about geisha, and you're trying to win the favor of geisha in this Japanese city. And so on your turn, you're going to be taking one of 4 actions, and those actions, everyone's going to take them. You just get to choose the order. One's going to be discarding a card, or is going to be, maybe drawing 3 cards and keeping 1, or keeping 2 and giving 1 away, or something like that, where you're going to interact with your opponent, and you're ultimately trying to have the highest value on these characters when the scoring happens, and if you're able to score a certain number of points or win a certain number of geishas to your favor, you're going to win. Now, the cards are going to fit, not, they'll fit okay on one table. I can, just sort of sizing them out. It might be a little bit more comfortable if you used, you and the person you're playing with and kind of spread it across two. But it's a very small, slight game that is actually very interesting in terms of its strategy and what you're doing, and that will work nicely in a very small space confine. So there you go, Hanamakoji, my number 9. My number 8 is a game that, this is another one where it might be kind of tight, but ultimately all you really need on the table is a few kind of tokens and a row of just a few cards and then a place to kind of to store the deck. So it would work very nicely on board a plane. This is a game, it is a 2-player only game called Jaipur. And it is a fantastic little game that I just really get a kick out of. You'll see, it's very small and slight. You just have this row of cards and a few tokens, and ultimately, you could probably keep the box lid and kind of put the used tokens that you've claimed in there so that you could make sure they didn't fall anywhere. But it's a delightful, fast little trading game where you're trying to win 2 out of 3 games. That's actually my only problem with it, is the sort of win 2 out of 3 because it means you got to kind of set it up again. But regardless, on your turn, you're taking simple actions, and you're very much interacting with the other player. You're trying to sort of be the first to get certain goals, and you're making little trades with this public market. It's a delightful game for 2. It's not too long, it's not too loud, and it's small in the space that it demands, although, the second tray would be helpful. But you could play this on an airplane tray. Number 8, Jaipur. So let's go on to number 7. My number 7 is another game that I actually have played on the back of a train, plane, on the tray table of a plane. There we go, that's what we're talking about. Stay with us, Kyle. This is another one of the and Right games, and it's one of my favorite ones. This is a delightful game called Welcome To. There's a bunch of different versions of this. There's the Moon, which is the best version, but that's a bigger box. And then there's New Vegas, and then, of course, the classic Welcome To. Let me put the banner up. Looks like I forgot that. But this is a game where really all you need is a very small space. You need room for this pad, and then room for some cards. And if you're playing the solo version, you don't really even need to split the decks into 3, which makes this even easier. As a solo game on a plane, it's very easy to play. That's how I've played it. But if you played it with another person, you just need room for kind of 3 decks of cards in their discard piles. Very easy. A delightful, fun experience. Tense in terms of what you're doing, but a lot of openness and a lot of variety if you have the other versions. Although, obviously, if you're playing on a plane, you're more concerned with space than variety. But a good game that could be great on your next flight. My number 7, Welcome To. Let's go on to number 6. My number 6 is an abstract game, and many abstract games that are small in their form would also be good for this list. This is the one I thought of just because it has a very nice, easy box with a magnetic lid, and that game is Onitama. So Onitama, delightful little game where you've got this little board, and you've got 5 pieces, and then you have these cards, and it actually looks like somebody's playing this in travel form. You've got 2 cards that you have access to. Once you use one, it will go away, and a new card will come out, and then that card you used will become available to your opponent. You're ultimately trying to manipulate your way into victory, either by capturing your opponent's master, I believe, or definitely by getting the master all the way over to the other side to sort of sit in the magic chair. But it's not got a lot of moving parts, just these nice pieces. And honestly, this fits in almost any kind of a travel context quite well. It's a satisfying little game, perfect for an airplane tray onitama. Let's go on now to number 5. Number 5 is a game that's, I guess, the only problem with the airline version of it is that it's slightly better with more than 2 players, but it's good with 2, and that game is called Point Salad. So Point City, not so much because that has a big grid, but Point Salad, sort of original or the delightful and yet unavailable in the U.S. Version of it called Point Salad EV Edition. In this game, you just really need 3 stacks of cards with room for 2 cards below it. You're going to be taking a card which has a scoring condition on it, or you're going to take face-up cards that will activate a scoring condition. You're going to do that until the decks are gone, and then add up your points. Very easy, very fast, simple rules, the kind of game you can play, set up, play, set up, play, set up, play, 5, 6 times. Maybe you're done at destination already. Actually, that's a very short flight. This is probably a 10-minute game, but it definitely would work on an airplane tray table. That's my number 5, Point Salad, EB Edition. Let's go on to my number 4. One of my favorite games from last year is this little solo dice and card game called 20 Strong. And 20 Strong happens to be my number 4. Now, one of the versions of 20 Strong, the Hoplomachus version, probably wouldn't work that well because it requires this large pyramid structure. But sort of base 20 Strong really just needs a couple of piles of cards and then room for you to roll your dice. Now, rolling the dice is going to be the only tricky part here because if you're not careful, they'll fall on the floor and get lost, and that would be sad. Fortunately, you can get a little. You've got this little box lid that you could use as your dice tray. Drop them right in there. As long as you're careful, they're not going to get lost. And the cards, they don't take up that much space. This is a good, solid game. It's not short by any means. I mean, it's not long, but it's a good length. A great game to sort of sit and play in a small, confined space. My number 4, 20 Strong. Let's go now to the top 3. All right, this is a brand new one, my number 3. This is one, though, I have not yet taken it on a plane, but I may, well, by the time this airs, maybe I have. This is, I'm trying to find it here. This one is the brand new little brother of Gloomhaven, Buttons and Bugs. So Buttons and Bugs is basically a solo-only version of Gloomhaven in a very small box. Everything is shrunk way, way down. And really, all you need is a couple of spots for the enemy cards and for their life trackers and the actual board of the game. I'm trying to even see if I can see it here. And these are these mini cards. These are not big cards. Looks like the board isn't depicted there. Most of these kind of cards and stuff you could set off to the side or in the box, so you wouldn't really have to worry about them. Here's the board, right? It's a tiny little thing with kind of that's a standard sized cube that's used on there. Really, all you need is to be able to move that around. It fits on one card plus a little bit of place for administration. This game is tiny, yet it's very satisfying. It's a very interesting puzzle, a delightful solo mini version of a great big game that gives you a lot of the same experience and is really quite fun. I do wish it came with an actual working rule book. That is a matter for a different issue, but hey, download that one on your phone before you get on the plane and you'll be fine. Anyway, it's a great little game, delightfully small, and really almost designed to be played on the back of a tray table on a plane. So my number 3, Buttons and Bugs, and I may have been playing that on my trip to Europe right now. Let's go on to the top 2. All right. Now, I mentioned I've really tried hard not to have too many and right games. I guess I ended up with three, although it's a list that kind of calls for them, right? But this game is just a delightful little game, especially as a solo on a plane. This would work really well. And the game is called Cartographers. So, I mean, normally you'll set it up on the table with a little bit more space, but really all you need for Cartographers is basically the scoring cards, right? And you could set those out, A, B, C, and D, and then you have a deck of cards and your own little pad. And that most of the game really happens on your individual player pad. I'm wondering if I can see a picture of the game set up somehow. I'm sure I won't find it now. Well, yeah. So you really, well, this is a prototype, but but you'll see, all you really need is these 8 cards set up, and your own scoring pad, and then sort of the deck that you're going to draw from. Delightful game where you're kind of filling in this map and trying to get the most points, and the points are going to change from game to game. There's a bunch of different maps and expansions you can get, but again, on a plane, you probably wouldn't be concerned with that. You would be fine with the base game, and each map has both two sides that are a little bit different, so you would get a different challenge with each game. It's a great little game, a lot of fun. It works well with more than one player, but you on the plane you could play it with more than one player if you have someone sitting next to you, or by yourself, perfectly fine, and have a delightful experience. Cartographers is a great little game and a great small game, perfectly sized to play on a plane tray table. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time saying that. So now let's go on to my number one. All right, my number one's another game I actually have played on a plane. Personally, this one does require a little bit of creativity. It's a very small game. It's just you got to kind of be a little careful with these player shields because the game is about some hidden information, and that game is Blitzkrieg, World War II in 20 minutes or something like that. It has a name, a subtitle. But the board is about the size of the tray table. So, and it's a two-player game only. It says you can play solo, but I guess it's technically true, but it's not great solo. But really, all you need is a place for your little shield to go, so you could kind of put the board on one person's tray and then have them, I don't know, conceal the shield off to the side, which is what we did, and then another person could have the shield and any extra tokens on it. And it's really this very tight back and forth game. It says 20 minutes, that's about right. It's going to give you a nice experience of this tug of war, this interesting back and forth that is really something that's normally only available in a bigger game. So, it gets the tip of the hat for that. But in a small form factor, this game is a great big game. I will say the components aren't that great. I'm hoping that we get nicer versions of the chips or whatever that aren't all the same color. I've got some issues with those. But even if it stays exactly as it is, the game is small, yet rewarding and perfect for playing with another person on the back of, well, probably 2 tray tables. But then again, you can't play this meaningfully solo. So, yes, I know, there is a solo mode, it just sucks. So, you would be playing with another person anyway. Anyhow, that's the end of my list. I've had kind of, a lot of fun with this list. It's one of those ones that's, a little bit less about my preference and more about just games that I think are fun that fit this odd topic. I'm going to be back again next week with another pre-recorded episode talking about a new card game or an expansion to a card game called Sorcerer. The original game came out a few years ago, and the expansion is brand new. And then I'll give you another travel-related list while I'm on the plane back from Sweden the week following that. Anyhow, I'm going to end that here. I'm going to wish you safe travels and courage when you need it, and I'll hope to see you back next week for another episode of Wednesday Whimsy. Bye-bye.